Glad to see
Oh,
y'all.
all
It's
right.
good to see
Good.
everybody.
Kelly looks like she got her hair did.
I know.
No, I just threw it up. I've been laying down.
Oh, this whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh
All
my
right.
gosh.
I think we're
So
good.
I think we're good. All right. Well, a happy Father's Day to anybody who happens to be watching who is a daddy. Today is, we're really excited that you're all here with us tonight. As you know, we are the Flossom Four. We are about as flossom as we all can get. We embrace our craziness and our flaws, but the one thing that we know that we are super passionate about is talking about, real often talking about topics that maybe make people a little bit uncomfortable or topics which people really were interested in, but they're not quite sure, who to talk to about. So guess what? That's us. We're here to kind of pull back the covers on so many different things. And tonight, with being Father's Day and also June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, we just really wanted to come on and just kind of, talk about all the things. We know Father's Day can really pull up a lot of different emotions for a lot of different people, depending on what your story is. Um, but the one thing that we all want to share deeply here is that we love the men in our lives, right? And anybody who's watching this, obviously you're the same, whether it's your partner, your dad, your son, your brother, or your friends. And tonight we are just going to kind of open up a space. Once again, we briefly touched on this last week with men's mental health. And it's not always easy for them to speak up. In fact, I think Dawn's going to share some stats with us, but I think it's like 50% of men who struggle with any type of mental health issue are going to actually speak about it. And the others just kind of push it down. And so we just want to have a conversation about that. We want to make sure that, we hear them and we see them, and we know it's not always easy for our guys to kind of open up about those things. In fact, real often as young boys growing up, um they're kind of told to hide it. So we know there are stories that need to be heard. We are here to just, hear those, speak those, let everybody know it's not a taboo thing to be spoken about. Mental health is, for me, what I think is it should be as mainstream to talk about as, oh, I got a new pair of glasses today. To me, there's really no difference. So tonight, we're not here to fix. We're not here to, judge any of those types of things. We're just really here to kind of normalize the mental health. This month, we're talking about it with men. We want to make sure that us as their support team, we understand what's going on and maybe can offer them some advice, whether it's from what we have learned from being mamas and wives and seeing all the things, or maybe it's things that we've learned along the way. As many of you know, Dawn is a longtime career nurse, 30 some years. So she has seen the gamut in a I don't know, in a hospital setting. So we are just going to kind of tag team here a little bit. Dawn is the queen of all things stats. She is our numbers girl, and she has passion like there is no tomorrow in regard to this. So Dawn, I hope you hop up on your soapbox for a bit here. Take us to church. Do what you need to do.
That's of course you're going to prop me up on that pedestal right now when I'm having like the world's largest tech issue. So all of my stats, sadly, I'm going to have to go off of my phone, which I'm also on, but thank you. And Lisa, you nailed it right on the head. Mental health to me is huge. There are so many components to this. You know, a lot of us have this kind of preconceived notion that, especially when we're talking about men, but in general, there's this kind of feeling of inadequacy or weakness that we feel, a literal level of vulnerability that many, many people feel by expressing it and by asking for help or telling people that you need space, you need healthy boundaries, right? Whatever it is, you need help. And that to me is something that we do need to kind of normalize, is having that discussion and knowing who your village is so that you can lean into those people, because every single one of us is, you know, human beings, just like dogs are pack animals. We are not made to be the lone wolves. We are kind of pack animals. We are made to live in small villages of people together, right? Like, I think that the information says like small groups of like 110 people is like the most successful little village, because everybody has a purpose and you can lean on each other. And this is kind of what we have to get back to in life, is leaning into people. So first, we're going to start with some stats, okay? And again, bear with me, I'm reading from this. So and I'm not even sure if you can still see me, that doesn't matter, as long as you can hear my voice. So, okay, suicide. Okay, suicide rates amongst men are nearly 4 times more likely than women. 4 times. That's frightening. Depression. 6 million men, 6 million men experience depression each year, but many of those men will mask it in the form of anger, withdrawal, substance abuse, right? Coming home from work after a long day and cracking a few beers, um, you know, pouring yourself a Jack Daniels at the end of every day. You know, some people turn to, not that alcohol cannot be terribly damaging in and of itself, but a lot of men we have a higher incidence of drug abuse, substance abuse amongst men in general. So that kind of goes hand in hand. So the substance abuse, 70% of alcohol related deaths are among men, and binge drinking is much more common. Drinking is having, gosh, I forget the threshold exactly, but I think it's more than 3 drinks, more than 3 drinks in a sitting. Anxiety is very common in men, but it's often less reported due to the stigma. So most men are not going to come out and say, I'm feeling anxious, right? So oftentimes it seems to manifest in a feeling of overwhelm, right? And again, every scenario is different, every household is different, but how common is it for, say, like dad to come home from work and just feel like, listen, I need to go decompress. I know that my husband has a routine. He comes in the house, plops his things down, and he will go upstairs for about 40 minutes, hop in the shower, you know, and just kind of unwind from his day. And part of me, I'm not going to lie, sometimes is like, geez, what, I have to lock myself in the laundry room to get that time, right? And it's important for
Yeah.
women too, but today we're talking about men, right? But take that time if that's what you need, and have that open communication line with your spouse so that they understand, listen, I know it seems like I'm in the bathroom for an hour and a half, but maybe that's the time that I need to come down from my day, right? Um, so why do we think so many men are suffering in silence? You know, have you ever seen somebody close to you that really pretended to be okay and they clearly were not? I think that many of us have seen that. And, you know, now we have to factor in the fatherhood factor. So men in general have this level of stress. Um, Again, not to say that women do not, but it's unspoken. You know, they're not going to be as apt to break down in tears when they're overwhelmed, or show those signs of frustration necessarily. it oftentimes will manifest itself a little bit different. So that fatherhood factor, right? So that's the good, the hard, and the hidden, basically, right? So the good sides of fatherhood are the amazing sense of purpose. Once you become a dad, you're often given this really deeper meaning in your life, a sense of purpose, a sense of understanding why you're here, right? And that's a very common theme for parents. A sense of connection, that's huge too. Forming that bond with those kids, it really does improve your emotional well-being. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And then joy. A lot of engaged fathers often report higher levels of life satisfaction, joy, true peace, I feel like is a good way to describe it. Now, some of the hard parts of being a dad, though, like let's not candy coat this. It can be difficult. And here you have a bunch of moms talking about what it's like to be a dad. But guess what? Every single one of us has that ability to look at our hardworking spouse and have a level of empathy and understanding as to what they're going through and maybe what got them to where they are, right? So stress, definitely that pressure to provide and balancing those roles of being a father and participating in your kids' lives and in the household, yet also oftentimes balancing that with the need to work and the need to provide that income to the house. And that can be terribly stressful. I mean, let's be honest, in this day and age, every single one of us, it does not matter, is having to work harder to make ends meet than we did 5 years ago, than we did 10 years ago for sure, right? It is
Absolutely.
just more difficult. Financially, everything is just it's a harder world to navigate. So they have the sense, that they've got to hold it all together. And that is the really hard part. It definitely falls on all of us in many ways, but there is this kind of social preconceived notion that the dad is going to be the one to save things. Sleep deprivation. That's a hard part of being a dad too, right? So even if mom's breastfeeding, dads, we all have that level of interrupted sleep at that point. And that can definitely result in feelings of anxiety, mood swings, burnout. I mean, I'll tell you, it's very similar to being a night shift worker, with which I have also done. If you are thrown out of that circadian rhythm, it is so difficult to function properly the next day. Your fuse is short. You oftentimes feel frustrated, not very clear minded, lack of focus. And that is something that is palpable oftentimes. And then postpartum depression. So, do you know that 1 in 10 dads, especially when they're isolated or have a financial strain or a financial burden on them, will experience postpartum depression? That was a statistic I had no idea about. None at all. And it truly was something that was earth shattering for me to read that, because I think all too often we think of just the hormonal cycles that moms go through. But dads, especially when they're invested and care about the situation and the outcome of it, it is very common for them to get kind of pulled into that. Now, as far as, that sense of purpose, it's very important to remember and to remember your role in life. Remember the value that you as the dad bring to the table. Unfortunately, there is no handbook for any of this for any of us. And a lot of us are flying by the seat of our pants. And my dad had a favorite quote, or this was a favorite quote of his that I loved. And I feel like it really does allow you to kind of give people grace in where they're at. But every single person is the sum total of their life experience. So dads coming to the table, not all of these men had great role models. Some had amazing role models and feel a sense of inadequacy, that they may never actually attain that same level of parenthood, of support, of love, of guidance that they got from their dad. Others never saw it. They had a mom that was both the mom and the dad, right? And that's such a difficult place to be as well. And then there's everybody else in between, you know? Um, I will say, even when you've had an amazing dad, sometimes we get to the point in life where that dad passes. And I will tell you, um, that is something very difficult, just like when the matriarch of the family goes. Sometimes when the dad, right, that great role model that you had, even as an adult, once you lose them, it leaves a hole in your heart, as a man and as part of the family. And I've watched that happen to people that I love, and it is really heartbreaking. And we have to give ourselves grace for that as well. So, there's definitely tools that we talk about, support for mental health. Um, I think talking about it absolutely is the number one factor. It is the very best thing that we can do. First of all, is let someone around you know that you are struggling, that you need some time, that you need to maybe even talk to someone. We've really gotten, unfortunately, I think for a long time, we have given a sense of shame, or we've found a sense of shame in telling people that we wanted to go talk to someone, a counselor, a therapist, what have you. And I will say there were a couple of good things that came out of COVID. One of which is that there are so many telehealth programs that are out there right now. And many of them, I mean, you could be self-pay for these. You can opt to do that. Oftentimes you can get flexible spending reimbursement for them, or your insurance may cover it as well. But that is one thing that I will say, while the need is so much higher post-COVID for mental health, the access to it is completely different than it used to be. So you could sit in your truck in the driveway after work, connect your Wi-Fi, and get on a Zoom call with a therapist, and nobody even has to know about it, right?
Yeah.
It's such a cool thing, that these services are available, because let's be honest, oftentimes a barrier to getting those services is your work schedule, right? Therapists don't work till 8 or 9 p.m., but most of us work until 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night and later. So if you are interested in talking to someone, be creative, hop online and figure out the resources that are available to you in your area. Other parts to this, and this is something I'm really passionate about, is the biology behind depression, behind mental health disorders. I have, as Lisa mentioned, this is 31 years as a nurse for me this year. I have seen so many ailments, mental health ailments, in which we have thrown medication at. I have yet to necessarily see somebody be cured, right? Quote unquote cured with medication alone. Personally, I believe that your diet has a tremendous amount to do with that. It is not just not eating fast food, it is nourishing your body with the simple and most basic elements that it needs. Magnesium, that is huge for mental health. You know what else is also huge? Vitamin D. If your vitamin D levels are off, and let's be honest, there's barely a person in North America, it seems, that does not have low vitamin D levels these days, especially once you reach adulthood. Vitamin D is directly linked to mental health. So if your levels are plummeting, please check into that. Get on a good supplement, which has to be a good quality vitamin D3 with K2 and magnesium. The trifecta of those three, actually, they all help each other to absorb one another. So you get the best bang for your buck that way. Something else is gut health. gut dysbiosis, okay? Dysbiosis, basically think of it as meaning like an imbalance, right? So you either don't have enough of the good guys that you need in your gut lining, or you have too many of the bad guys and they've crowded out the good guys. And either way, it creates like a battlefield. And you've got to find an even balance there where you can get rid of the bad gut bacteria, help that to heal, and then also focus on replenishing all of the basic good guys bacteria that we need, right? So that's going to be done with good healthy diet, good fiber intake, polyphenols, which are abundant in things like berries, for instance, pomegranate, lots of fruits have polyphenols. And then talk to your doctor, talk to one of us. I'm happy to be a resource to find some good supplements for people to get onto. And then from there, we talk about other things that are very basic and very rudimentary that the four of us talk about all the time. Hemp-based support, basically, right? Functional mushroom support. And all of that we are doing is literally leaning into nature and utilizing the plants and the materials that already grow abundantly and that science has proven is beneficial to us. So I love when we can kind of have these two worlds collide, where, you know, a lot of the functional mushrooms and hemp, CBD, all those things. I think a lot of people, even things like sage, right? Um, a lot of people looked at those things as if it was like, oh, if that's woo woo, right? Well, no, it's science. And those of us that are interested in preserving our health for the for the long run are the people that are up on doing our own research, looking into it, right? And diving in with 2 feet to say, hey, listen, these pills that y'all have are absolutely can have a place, especially in an acute situation. Please do not ever confuse what I'm saying to say that you should never take them. Should it be a lifestyle that you stay with forever? Hopefully not. Hopefully, we can get you off of that by swapping out some foods, getting on a good exercise routine, right? Lifestyle changes. They actually work, right? It's huge. But natural stress relief and endorphin boosters are just regular exercise and activity. It does not mean that you have to be training for a marathon. It does not. Okay, just get moving. You could do, my husband wakes up every morning, takes his iPad out to the yard and does Qigong. If nobody knows what that is, it's almost like Tai Chi, right? I think they may have done it in the Karate Kid. I don't know. um, but he's teaching himself because he's pulling up some YouTube videos and doing it, right? It is not hard and stressful movements, but it is movement and it is intentional. And it also allows you to quiet your mind. And that is part of this, right? Shutting off the noise in the background, even if it's just for a little while. Additionally, peer check-ins. Like you got to check in with your boys. You absolutely do. This is something that is huge. It does not matter if we are just like checking in with your buddy when you guys are playing around at golf, you know, working out, hanging out at the garage, working on projects together on a weekend. Just check in with people, especially if you have any kind of a sense that they may be under some stress. You're seeing changes in them. Just ask, okay? You would not believe the level of the level of empathy when you convey it to somebody else that they feel. It is truly palpable. Um, Also, you know, finding that like we talked a little bit about that like quiet time, but you don't necessarily just have to be doing qigong at the top of a hill someplace as the sun comes up to get that. For a lot of people, it is truly, like I said, like that time in the shower at the end of the day when you come home, taking a hot sauna, doing yard work, fishing, right? Woodworking, tinkering in your garage. But whatever it is, make sure if you need it, you are finding a way to factor it in for yourself. It is, you can't skip it. And then, digital breaks, that's a huge thing. Taking a break from the screen time. We have a no TV in the bedroom policy, and that is on purpose. We have one TV in our house, and that is the only, sorry, the deep breathing is not from me. It's a dog, I promise. Um, everybody has to come parading in today, right? While I'm on. Anyway, and she is the loudest breather.
I love it. I love it.
You're right. But so again, giving yourself that break, when it's bedtime, it's bedtime. Make your bedroom for sleeping and any other extracurricular activities you want, but not for television. Even the phones. Like I get up, if I take my phone to bed and am on it, I get up and I walk into the bathroom to go plug it in. Right? Like get it away from you and just give yourself that true break that you need.
I do want to make a really quick comment to
Yes,
that.
please do.
For those people that sleep with their phones next to them, there's a lot of scientific research that are going on based off of what these little things are emitting. And I got to a point where I was having daily headaches, and I was like, I wonder if this really has something to do with that. And I moved my phone out of my bedroom into our living room, which, I mean, it's a camper, so it's 10 feet away. But anyway, it was not, I mean, because it literally was sitting right here by my head. And it, in a matter of days, made a huge difference to the point where I hadn't said anything. I had just mentioned Philip had asked me about why I was putting my phone in there, and I was like, oh, I'm just, it's kind of weirded out sleeping by it. And so a few days later, he realized that I was having less headaches. And about a week after that, he was like, you're not having near as many headaches as what you were before when you were sleeping with it next to your head. And I was like, yes. I said, that's the whole reason why I moved it. So there's some genuine, like, backed
Yeah. Yeah.
research and evidence in that. Like, do
No,
not sleep with your phone next to you.
Right, and so many people do because, right, we use it for everything. We use it for
Yeah.
our white noise. We use it for our alarm clock in the
Alarm.
morning.
Yeah.
All the things.
right.
So yeah, it's interesting how technology can be a blessing and a curse. Dawn, you shared so many things, and maybe I'm a little more emotional, right? Because I'm sitting here thinking about my boys who have children. And as you're talking about all the things, and one of them just has a 1 month old, right? So he's in it. He's in the thick of it, and his wife is a breastfeeding mama, but he's up just as much as she is, right, along with her. They are truly co-parenting from day one, which my other son and his wife did as well. And when you're talking about that postpartum, when you shared that stat, my first thought was, what? And then I went, if I really think about it, and a lot of women would disagree with me. I have always said maybe not right in delivery, but as you're in labor and you're in that room, and the wife is, or the female is going through whatever, and the male is watching his spouse, his wife, his girlfriend, his best friend go through everything she's going through. I sometimes think the man has it harder in there because he's watching
Yeah.
his best friend in all of this pain, and there's not a damn thing he can do about it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what came to my mind when you're talking about the postpartum, because right? We as women, we go through all these hormonal, holy cow craziness as soon as you have that baby, and your body doesn't know what it's supposed to be doing. Am I still supposed to be pregnant? Am I supposed to be, getting back to normal? Am I supposed to be making milk? What am I doing? But the men have to go through that same thing because they've now just gone through this whole emotional roller coaster, and their cortisol level is doing this number because they're in the middle of fight or flight, and they're freezing, and they might want to flight in the
Yeah.
moment, right? But they're in it. And I never thought about that from a postpartum depression standpoint until you said that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's one, I don't know. I think it's one that took us all our breath away a little bit. That one like hurt this mama's heart.
Also,
Mhm.
I mean, you gotta take
Well,
into the account
also think about
what I mean, you've just gone through 9, 10 months of being super tight,
Yep.
getting ready to celebrate this baby coming in. And then all of a sudden, all of the mother's attention is going through survival of the fittest, quite literally. I mean, she's trying to make a baby thrive. She's trying to survive as well. And he's over here off on the sidelines just watching everything go on. Not that they're not participating or anything, but there's a level of um I don't want to say abandonment, but
Yep. Yep.
they're having to watch her give all of her attention to this other being when
Mhm.
it was them, you know what I'm saying? And I know that there's got to be a level of that that's just it plays with your mind. You start going into the whole, what does she even love me anymore possible situation, or she's not showing me any attention. And while, those are things that we all need to deal with and walk through and have the conversation, I mean, men are creatures who crave the attention and the physical touch. And when they don't get that, that triggers things. I mean, they need to have that physical touch with their spouse in order to have that bond.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. And Lisa, to your note too, it's like there's oftentimes I almost think this sense of underlying sense of inadequacy as well.
Mm.
Because I mean, look at what they're watching happen. They're
Yep.
watching their significant other not only carry this baby, but do absolutely insane things in delivering it, right? And good, bad, or ugly, right? Like whatever is happening in the delivery room, they can't do anything but be there and be a
Right.
support, right? Like
Right.
there's nothing that's going to make it better. I mean, they could make it worse, I suppose, but you know what I mean? But like you almost feel like your hands are tied, like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I just have to be here on this journey by her side, but I can't take pain away. I can't change the outcome of things, right? And many men have that attitude of being like the fixer,
Hmm.
right? So it's not just plunging the toilet. it's it's the fixer in many ways. And that's a hard thing for a lot of men to watch for sure, is to watch their significant other go through all of these physical changes and first of all be in awe of it. But then also, like you said, it's like she's, especially if it's a breastfeeding mom, she carried that baby, she delivered that baby, she is going to be the sole supporter physically of that baby in many ways, nourishing it, nursing it. And a lot of dads feel like they're sitting on the sidelines. And I don't necessarily think that it's, a bad thing because, that baby does have to be number one at a certain point, or for a certain amount of time. But it's sharing that attention too, and figuring out that now readjusting that you're not number one anymore, right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
might be too.
absolutely.
Well, I
You
mean,
Yeah.
know,
even becoming a mother or father, you quickly find out that first baby, like the grandparents don't care about you anymore. You're chopped
Oh,
liver. It's that baby, because
oh,
Philip and I
right,
went
right.
through that. We're both only kids. So when the grandkids were born,
Yeah,
Oh my,
forget about it, right?
Kelly, you have been beautiful over there, but silent.
Why, thank you. I have been on mute because I am having these coughing fits and nobody needs to hear this nonsense. But I love everything that y'all have said. And I mean, honestly, Dawn, the statistics that you shared tonight are, I mean, honestly, they just hurt my heart. I mean, I knew that they were high. I knew that men were, more susceptible to these things, but I had no idea that they were exponentially that much higher. Um, and my dad is the only one who's left in my nuclear family now. I lost my mother and lost my sister, and my daddy is my hero. I mean, I am a daddy's girl through and through. And I got to spend today with him, and he's 84 years old. And you all know, and a few people know, he's extremely private. And so I have not shared publicly, but last year, matter of fact, almost exactly a year ago, right now, I came very close to losing him. And I don't even think at the time when we were going through it, we realized how gravely ill he was. I feel like a year later, he's finally almost back to where he was, pre pneumonia and sepsis, as a matter of fact. People half his age don't survive that. And, just a testament to prevention and the different things that he's done over the course of his life. I've watched him my whole life as a little girl. Um, and growing up, watching my dad take supplements, he's always been a big, big believer in um, different vitamins to address different things. What Dawn talked about, the magnesium, vitamin D, different things like that. I do believe that the healthy stores that my daddy had are what allowed him to come through that terrible situation that he did. And one of his doctors told him, Mr. Pete, if you had not been as healthy as you were when you got sick, you would not be here. And that's hard to even think about because I get choked up even thinking about him not being here. But if law, natural law of order prevails, he will go before me. And it's really hard to think about that. And it's hard to watch your parents age. But, my dad is one of those strong men, but just gentle and kind. Anybody who knows him loves him. And he grew up in that era where, you didn't talk about stuff like this. You just pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You went about your business. I can remember a time when my mother was having some issues with some anxiousness and actually had a full blown panic attack at one time. This was before her cancer diagnosis. And he was not even supportive when a doctor put her on, some type of medication to address that because he didn't like the changes he saw in her. And I, as a woman, I mean, obviously I was a young woman, young adult at that time, but I had to say, Daddy, she might need this right now. I mean, I'm not a big medication person either, but I do believe that at certain times in our lives, I've been there myself where I had to look to a prescription medication to help me through something really horrible. Two of those times were losing my mother and then losing my sister 2 years later, because I just didn't know what to do with myself. Right. So I think that over these years, the the acceptance that is there that used to not be around mental health, mental wellness. I'm so glad to see it because I would never want anybody to feel like they're alone and they don't have somebody who's there to listen to them, who truly does care. And I think that through the losses that our family has gone through, that has kind of softened my dad's stance on some of those things, if that makes sense. And it really is just it's that generation. they are the strongest generation. I truly believe that. Um,
You know what,
but
Kelly, to that point though, too, sorry to interrupt you.
no, it's fine.
Think about all of these young guys that fought in all of these wars too,
Yeah.
right? Korea, I mean, World War I, of course, but Korea, World War II, Vietnam, and even into more current days, all the desert storms and all of these operations, veterans fall into this category big time,
Yes.
big time with the PTSD. And to what your point is about this being like a different generation, right? I once had somebody interviewing me. We were chatting about veterans, and his question to me was, why do you think that veterans cope different now than they did then? Right. And back then, back in the day, like Vietnam and before at least, it was come home, get a job, and you resume your life. And that's that, right? And that's how it had to be. So people rejoined their family farms. They got married, they started their own families right away. They started their own businesses, right? So they kept busy and were doing things that so many of the things that used to happen in our society don't happen the same anymore,
You're right.
right? People are not getting outside and sticking their hands in the dirt and on a regular basis. Many people are not. um, there's value in all of that, right? Growing your own garden, helping your family farm gives you a sense of purpose, gives your life a sense of meaning. And unfortunately, you nailed it right on the head. There are so many things that are different about that generation compared to these current generations. And I think that we have to get back to some of those old ways,
Mhm.
right? Like bonding, being around other people, having a purpose, having a mission in life. It is good for every single one of us. When you sit idly, nothing good comes of it. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was just like, oh,
No,
on my heart.
yep, yep. Well, I mean, honestly, the message that I just want every man who may be, hearing this live, or who hears a recording, or who, my husband upstairs is probably listening. I just want all of you to know, I mean, and just celebrating all of you men today on Father's Day, just that, the real strength is not silence. It's in asking for help if you need it. And whether that's your buddy, picking up the phone or texting somebody, and, doing something for somebody else. I have found that myself when I've been the most sad, when I've been, kind of in a place where I'm just feeling stuck. If I can find somebody else to do something for, that helps me to get unstuck, taking the focus off of me. So whatever that looks like. But, you know, all of you men, you do matter to us. We need you. We see you. We celebrate all that you do, and we support you. And it's just always, always okay to reach out, whether it's to us, your women, your daughters, your wives, your friends, whatever, or, another friend. But the natural options that you mentioned, Dawn, I can't even say that enough. How many people, and men specifically, who I have encountered over these last 6 years, who have gotten so much relief from the sleep problems, and that's foundational for everybody, you know, man or woman. But the sleep, just calming your nervous system, being able to quiet your mind, and just helping you to come into balance. So between the CBD, between the functional mushrooms, being intentional about going outside, being in the sunshine, spending time with your dog, petting a dog is so
Mhm.
healthy. It's so good for you. That's why I'd have a house full of them if Don would let me, but he won't.
As does Dawn. Well, actually, all of you do.
You could probably hear Daisy behind me snoring right now. She's my loud one.
Mm.
But I've just enjoyed this time with y'all so much. I've missed you. I feel like I've been away for such a long time. But I mean, really, truly, all you men, we thank you truly, and we applaud you, and just really happy that we had this, one special day to celebrate you, but I personally appreciate and love you every single day. So that's all I have. I don't know if you guys have any closing comments or anything.
No, I just, if somebody stuck with us this long, if something obviously sparked something in them, to make them want to listen in. And if that is the case, if it's something we can help with, we're here to help. If there's further conversation somebody thinks we should have, we're always open to suggestions and ideas. Um, as I said, we just like to pull back the curtain and talk about the things that maybe not everybody likes to talk about, but are curious about. So we will be back, same bat channel, same bat time, next week, Sunday. Meredith, I hope you're feeling better by then. I hope everybody has an absolutely amazing week, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Yep. Happy Father's
Thank
Day.
Happy
you.
Father's Day.
Happy
Good night,
Father's Day.
girls. Love you all.
Love you too.